Let's crack open a beer and share some thoughts.
Welcome to Hopinions, and it's our look back at the year in beer.
I know, looking forward to this.
I am, indeed. And
After
also,
all, it's been a lot of beer drunk.
There's been a lot of beer drunk. I'm also very much looking forward to the beers that we've chosen to drink this evening.
Yeah,
as well.
When you say we've chosen,
that I decided that we would drink for this week's show. So I'm going to put a shout out straight away because I saw this on the Beer Channel. I saw Johnny and Brad do this on the Beer Channel, and I really liked the concept of what they were doing. So I wanted to recreate that this evening. So what we've got for your listening pleasure this week is we're drinking 3 whiskey barrel-aged stouts.
Yep.
Each which have been aged in a different type of whiskey barrel.
Yes.
So we've got Harviestoun's Dubh 12, which has been aged in Scotch whiskey barrels.
Mm-hmm.
We've got 200 Fathoms from Galway Bay, which has been aged in Irish whiskey barrels.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've got Goose Island's Bourbon County Bourbon.
You did it.
I did. Trying to be so disciplined.
Did you have it in your head? Must not say Bourbon. Must not say Bourbon.
Must not say biscuits. Must not say biscuits. Goose Island's Bourbon County Stout from 2015, which has obviously been aged in bourbon barrels.
Yes.
So we're going to be drinking the 3 of those to see if we can pick up the variances between the different types of whiskey barrel aging. And we've got a little joker in the pack as well, haven't we?
Yeah, because obviously I had the Dubh 12-year-old in my cellar, and I also then said, well, I also have Highlands Park. So this was distilled in 1998 and bottled in 2010. So been in a barrel for 12 years. So I feel it's a fairly close match to what the Dubh would have been barrel aged in.
Okay, so we'll be finishing with that then.
We'll be finishing with that,
won't we?
Yes.
Because for those
I'm very much looking forward to it because I haven't opened this bottle.
Okay, so that's getting
Highland
broken
Park
open tonight.
Tonight, live.
And probably being wholly unappreciated by me. if people remember back to when you made me drink gin and what that did to me. So yeah, I think it's quite an interesting experiment.
I'm looking forward to it. I mean, I when you told me about it, I purposely didn't watch the Craft Beer Channel because I wanted to do our bit and then go back to see what the Craft Beer Channel guys did as well.
And if anybody wants to do the same, there's a link in the show notes to the video on the Craft Beer Channel. Go across and have a look at it because obviously they've got slightly different palates to us and they've got slightly different views on the drinking.
And we're not on it.
And they're a little bit more professional. I don't think they drink as much as we're about to.
I don't know. Did you see that when they did the one as they did the thing in the place they bought for the Beer Merchants Bar?
No.
Yeah, they drank quite a lot of lambics and sours, so professional sometimes.
Okay, so let's because we've already got the first one in the glass because we wanted to let it breathe a bit, and we had some discussion about the order to do them in. Now, normally common sense would dictate that you start off with the Harviestoun because it's only 8%.
Yeah.
Then you do the 200 fathoms.
Sorry, I like that. Only 8%.
Then you do the 200 fathoms at 10%, and then move up to the Bourbon County at nearly 15%.
Yeah. But because we have also got the accompanying whiskey with it, I think we have to do the Dubh with the whiskey. So I think that we still finish with it. Now I'm confident that there's still enough flavour profile in the Dubh, even with the lower ABV. But we will find out.
And we've got plenty of water to.
We have got plenty of water because we are professional.
We are indeed. So this first one up this evening is the Galway Bay and Teeling Whiskey, 200 fathoms. This is a 2016 release, and this was a gift to me from Wayne and Janice at the Irish Beer Snobs.
And I think this is the only time I've tried it before myself, is when they were over here last year and we had our bottle share extra carnage.
Yes, very much so. It's now the nose on that's incredible.
Yeah, it's not really getting the whiskey off it at the moment, but getting like slight hints of dark fruit actually for me.
A little bit of dark chocolate, maybe a little bit of leather in there as well.
Oh, that's thick, isn't it?
That's the first thing I thought actually was, Wow.
It's not even a hot chocolate in mouthfeel.
Well, I said when I opened it, and the instant whiff that I got out of the bottle as I was pouring it into the glasses brought back these memories of chocolate liqueurs at Christmas. And my dad just sitting and eating his way through a box
Actually,
of
do you know
liqueurs.
what? Because I have to admit, I was never a massive fan of chocolate liqueurs. I never really understood them. But I do know what you're saying.
Yeah.
Do you know what? Because I as I often do, I looked back in Untapped, remembered I'd had it, and I've written down quite extensive notes, bearing in mind the night it was, but it was taking place.
You did well.
I did well, and I wrote down I got a hint of marzipan, and whatever gave me the marzipan that time round put me right off, because it's one of those flavours, a bit like the coconut for us, that kind of thing. Not getting any of that now.
But that would have been fairly fresh.
Yeah.
Because if that was when Wayne and Janice were over, that was April 2016. So that would have only been in the bottle a matter of weeks.
Yeah,
maybe.
it was a fairly new release, and I'm just wondering. There's no marzipan connected with it, but there was obviously something which triggered for me that olfactory whole thing coming back to you and saying there's marzipan, and then straight away, as soon as you get an aroma or flavour you don't like, you can't shake it, can you?
No, it's there, isn't it? Yeah,
it just hangs, and nothing else I could do about it. Also, obviously, we were sharing one 500ml bottle among about 10 of us that night.
Yeah,
easily 10 of us.
And I still think that has an impact on what you taste and what you smell from a beer. I think the smaller the pour, the less you're actually getting from that. I mean, we've got
a very good pour,
half a glass,
yeah. in one of the smaller Teku glasses as well. So you're getting a real concentrated aroma at the top, aren't you?
Yeah.
And I think you really notice that.
I think the glasses are working perfectly for this beer.
Yeah. And so we're back in our studio in Liquorice in Shenfield.
We are indeed.
And Dan, as ever, has looked after us. So he's left us a few nice Teku glasses, supplied us with water. So I think that's maybe for his benefit. Actually, he's given us the water.
Yeah.
So thank you very much again to Dan. If you are passing through Shenfield for any reason, I can vouch for both their spirit, wine, and their ever-growing craft beer selection.
Yeah,
actually,
the beer selection's incredible.
Yeah, and good prices.
Yeah, very good prices.
Buy four, get a discount, I think, as well.
Also available on Magic Rock Cannibal.
Yeah, which Steve hasn't bought for the last two recordings we've been here as well.
It's because I've got a fridge full at the moment because it's nearly Christmas.
Oh yeah, you just got green, haven't you?
Yes.
You get confused between Cannibal and Holly, don't you?
I just like to fill my fridge up full of green. Yes. So it's going to take us a while to get through these beers tonight.
It is.
Because they are big and they are thick as well.
Yeah, but they deserve. I think they actually deserve a little bit of time as well.
And for all of our regular listeners that were a little bit upset with the 2 sub-hour shows that they've had recently, buckle up, because you're in for a long one.
Exactly.
So, mate, what have you been up to since? Because the last time we actually recorded was in Sheffield, wasn't it?
Yes.
Waiting for our train.
Waiting for our train, yes, while we were... Yeah, so that was a good recording, actually. I enjoyed that, and, again...
And the pints of Jaipur that you saw.
The pints of Jaipur, which I'll reference again later, maybe. Spoiler alert. No, I was trying to think about it, and I don't think I've done too many beer events, because I didn't make the last bottle share.
No.
Because I suddenly had to go to work, so I was away for a couple of days. So I missed out on that. I've done a few, we're in that season now where you're getting together with people. I had a few very pleasant pints in one of the Spoons in London, which used to be an old Barclays Bank.
Any standouts?
The Cowcatcher from East London Brewery. Very nice, 4.5%.
On draft? Or?
Yeah, cask pale ale.
Okay.
Really nice. Then they ran out of that, so I obviously drank enough of that. And then I defaulted to Green Devil in bottles.
Don't they sell the Cowcatcher in bottles as well?
Yeah, but once I've had it on cask, I would have struggled with the bottle version.
You don't want to do that comparison at that point.
And I just saw Green Devil.
Why would you not?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's just what I didn't see resin, I suppose.
Just as well.
But apart from that, I've been digging through the cellar as well, so I had a few random beers at the weekend. I had Marriage Parfait 2010.
Yeah, I saw you were going through some quite outstanding beers for a weekend session.
Yeah, well, because my weekend sort of changed because my car got unwell. And so I was just digging through the cellars. I'm sorting out a few beers for Michelle and I to do 12 beers Christmas over the period, and just having a bit of a general sort out because your plans have changed. You find a bit more time on your hands, and I thought, I've got a couple of those, so I can have one of those now, and just finding a few little specials here and there.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. What about you? What have you been up to?
Well, I went to Bottle Share It was a very, very quick affair this month. Actually, there wasn't a lot of people there. Obviously, yourself was missing, but
There was a few illnesses as well, and
a few of the other regulars was missing, and it literally flew by. And I think we were back at the bar by about 9:30, which
see, sometimes though, when we've had those quick ones, that can be just as dangerous though.
It was actually quite
Because
dangerous.
so the bottle share generally sort of, we arrange to meet at the bar any time from about 6, don't we?
Yeah.
Bottle share official kick-off time's around about 7. I would say usually the first beer from the bottle share is poured about 1:15. And if you've got a good crowd, say that 10 to 12, and a good selection of beers, you might not finish that up till about 10, especially if a bit of cheese or biltong comes out. But if you finish earlier, you go to the bar and suddenly you default to start having pints again, or keg.
That was kind of what happened when they had Weird Beard Gumball Double IPA on. Everybody just started drinking.
So it was like the night they put the Green Devil on keg, wasn't it?
It was ridiculous. So that was a good night. And then I went back to the Ale House this past week. They had a round tower event where it was a Meet the Brewer, and they had 6 round tower beers on gravity dispense there.
So I suppose when it's at Round Tower, local to Chelmsford, where the Ale House is.
They are. Now I have to say, normally gravity is like my worst form of dispense because it is the flattest beer that you're going to ever get in a glass.
Won't disagree with you.
Whatever either Round Tower or the Ale House done to those beers, I actually had a fizzy gravity beer in my glass. One of them was conditioned so perfectly, it had life, and it actually made me take a step back while I was drinking my beer. I was like, whoa, hang on a minute, there's life in that beer.
Were you confused for a moment?
I was very confused.
Which one was that from Round Tower?
It was the first one that I had. I can't for the life of me think what it was right now, but they had 6 on, and it was a fairly low ABV one, so it was like 4.1% or something like that. They had then also done a single cryo hopped beer as well. Okay. Which I've got to say, I don't think worked on gravity dispense.
Right.
I think if you're using those kind of cryo hops, there needs to be fizz in that beer. Okay, yeah. And it needs to be cold.
Okay, get that.
So we did most of the beers they had on offer, and then things got silly as they do, because I spied bottles of Wyoming Sheep Ranch in the fridge.
Did you leave the Ale House then or not?
No, we stayed in the Ale House.
Because I thought, when are you guys going to go to the Malsh and Tap?
We were, but we stayed in the Ale House. The Wyoming Sheep Ranch.
The Friday crawl involved one end of the bar in the Ale House
to the
other end.
Yeah.
And back.
Yeah. That was essentially it. So that was a good night. And then there's just one beer that I want to mention as well that I've had, which was I think it was a bit of a surprise release from Northern Monk. It was called Sonoma Pride, and it was a limited edition release that was only available in the tap room or via their web shop, so it wasn't going out to normal online distributors.
They named the beer after Mark's cat.
Yeah, and it was a lot of people have brewed beers and named it this at the moment, because apparently there's been some really bad wildfires in the States, in the Sonoma Valley.
Yeah, because that's where where a lot of the vineyards are, isn't it?
So what they've done is basically Northern Monk have brewed this beer, and it was a IPA 6.5% with Citra Mosaic hops. I think there might have been Simcoe in there as well, actually. I was never not going to buy this beer as soon as I saw that. But it was only available through their web shop, and it was 3 cans for a tenner. And that whole tenner went to like a fund for the victims of the wildfires. So then I think I paid like $5.95 postage. First time I've ordered from Northern Monk online. And it turned up in 2 days as well. So it's certainly, they've got their system sorted. But it was a cracking beer. It was absolutely incredible. It was just like, there were points where it literally tasted so fresh in the can, it felt like I was eating a raw hop. It was just incredible. Just really, really good work from Northern Monk.
Did you manage to save any of those, or did all 3 go in one sitting?
I drank 2 in one.
What percentage was it?
6.5.
Okay. So
was really easy to drink.
440s?
Yeah. just so easy to drink. And it was all I could do to not drink the third one because I promised to share it with Angela as well. So, and I was like, I literally had to put it in the back of the fridge, so behind the Cannibal,
out of sight.
so I couldn't see it. Yeah.
Oh, that's really good. Again, that's where a lot of breweries, pubs, pub goers, drinkers do their beer. There's a lot of charity in this particular part, in this world.
Yeah.
So that's really good. But a little bit of a tangent. There was a little story I read today. It was literally this morning when I was reading one of my magazines, where all those wildfires were in America. This family had to be evacuated, as a lot did, and they have some goats, and their family dog is also a particular type of breed that helps herd the goats. The dog wouldn't leave.
Oh, really?
The dog would not leave. So eventually the family had to go. They came back the next day when they were allowed back, and the dog and the goats were all okay, although the dog was a little bit singed.
Oh,
but
so he'd stayed to look after the goats?
He'd stayed to look after, and apparently, according to the owner, the dog was really pleased to see them, but also quite proud of himself for the job he'd done of looking after the goats. I thought it was a really lovely...
Yeah.
It's just one of those little excerpts that you suddenly caught your eye, and then when you mentioned that, it just sort of came back to me, and I thought it was just... It's a really nice story, but also, Northern Monk have done that. That's really good.
Yeah, and I've also noticed, I saw a pump clip over the weekend on Twitter as well, that Beavertown have got a beer called Sonoma Pride as well. So that's what I'm saying. And if you look it up on Untapped, there are loads of beers with the same name.
Okay.
So and obviously Russian River sit in that valley as well. And I think that's basically the beer community has come together to raise money to support the families out.
Nice one. And if they're making good beer as well, it's a win-win, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
Speaking of which,
yeah, any thoughts? I mean, I just took a sip while you were telling the goat story, and it's like liquid dark chocolate.
It's I think it's actually getting better the more I'm getting of it. And again, I think I'll go back to what you referenced earlier and have referenced before on the show. Having enough of this beer to savour it over a period of time, rather than just having that almost the equivalent of a shot. And you can only do so much with a shot of beer. This is beautiful. Like I said, I wasn't that fussed the first time because of what I'd got from it. This is just lovely. It's a beer which deserves to be sipped, but it's good enough not to sip.
Yeah. And obviously this is the stout that we're doing in an Irish whiskey.
Yeah. So this is it's tealing, isn't it?
Yeah. Now, I don't know enough about whiskey to know what the distinct characteristics might be of an Irish whiskey barrel as opposed to the others.
No, I have to admit, that was something I was going to look into a bit more. But I just ran out of time with various things going on at the moment. But I'm getting, it's not so much a woodiness to it, but there's a depth to it which feels like it doesn't come just from the beer on its own.
No, it's certainly picking up.
It's picking up something else. But again, I suppose the only way you'd really know, and perhaps that's how we'll get to later, is that if you had a glass of tealing whiskey with it, if there was any characteristics which came out of it. But regardless of that, this is tasting fantastic.
It is. It's just tasting so good.
Yeah.
Spot on. Right. Let's get into some news then, because there's been some quite big news stories in the last couple of weeks. The first one, and I'm sure we're going to have a little bit to say about this. There's got to be... The sad news, I think, is the only way that you can describe it. The Tiny Rebel have been censored, for all intents and purposes, by the Portman Group for their branding on Cwtch, which is the beer that was their champion beer of Britain. The Welsh Red Ale comes in quite a distinct yellow can with their trademark teddy bear branding on it. It's been found to have been breaching a breach of the Portman's Group's code of practice. And I mean, basically what I'm reading from here is, because there's obviously a lot of people have commented on this. I think Boke and Bailey have commented on it. Matt Curtis commented on it through Good Beer Hunting, and a few others as well. But I thought the best one to use as reference material was the actual Tiny Rebel blog that they put out.
I read that one.
So they said that they would never have thought that one member of the public, and we'll come back to that point, an industry body funded by the likes of AB InBev, Carlsberg and Diageo, and a complaints panel made up of 10 people can cause this much damage to a brand. And basically what's happened is that they've been told they've got to change the can because it could appeal to young people, children, and they go on to point out so that colours are not specifically related to under 18s, soft drinks don't have a monopoly on cans, and the combination of beer, colour and can is neither new nor evil. And they then go on to say that they're not allowed to ignore this ruling because the Portman Group, that it's not a legal requirement, but they have to follow.
Yeah, because it's not a legal requirement, but they signed up to the code. It's supposed to be like a code of conduct or something like that, isn't it?
Yeah.
So once you've signed up, you sign up to do what is, if you do get any sort of judgment, you have to follow it.
Yeah. They then go on to say that they're not the victim here, the industry is. Point 2 that we'll come on to. And that it sets precedent, and the boundaries on that precedent are a little bit worrying. Point 3 that we'll come on to. And again, they then re-emphasise that in a country of nearly 66 million people, just one complaint has forced us to change, and it's taken them nearly 5 months of work and nearly £30,000 in costs. So
it's an astonishing story.
It's astonishing in that I struggle to understand that one person has gone into a beer shop and been that offended by the can, or that worried by a can that they've seen, that they've known where to make a complaint about it, and that complaint has forced all of this upon time.
But if it's someone who's a evangelical teetotaler, then they're looking for something anyway to do. It's no different to TV, advertising standards authority, that kind of stuff. Where
they have to have a minimum number of complaints before they act?
I don't know if they have to have a minimum number, because sometimes when I've heard the numbers quoted, it still seems particularly low. If you've got a programme which is watched by millions, and then they've said, I don't know, we used to watch Points of View or something, and we had a couple of hundred complaints, that still to me seems like a small amount.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't like the beer, don't buy the beer. If you don't like the programme, everyone used to say, well, turn it over to another channel. You know, it's a bit like Mary Whitehouse in the 70s with various programmes, including my beloved Doctor Who. She had a real bee in a bonnet about that for a long period of time. But it is still astonishing that you can go one person. But if your code of conduct doesn't have any requirements, then one person can make that complaint.
That's true. Now this is where I wanted to make a point that we were reading from Tiny Rebel's point of view. Yeah. Because if you then look on Twitter, there's a lot of suggestion of people saying, was that one person from one of the macros or one of their competitors that has simply abused the process to try and get an edge over them in business? Maybe,
but I'm not sure I would have gone for Tiny Rebel first. I mean, if we take one of the other points, being a dangerous precedent, and about not having the whole thing about cans and colours and stuff like that, then there are other ones out there. I'm not going to start naming them because I don't want to give anyone fuel for their fire. We could all name a few cans which we might think might appeal to younger people, if you're thinking along those lines.
We can, and from reading into this story and doing some background on this, apparently Beavertown have successfully fought off a challenge from the Portman Group in terms of there's been a challenge against their labelling as well, and they managed to override that and say, no, this isn't, look at it, it's clearly not designed for children. But I know we had a discussion on the day that this story came out, particularly in terms of Magic Rock. And maybe not all of their cans, but certainly the one that really springs to mind for me is High Wire Grapefruit, which looks like a can of pop.
Yeah, and when I brought in last year for our Macmillan coffee morning, I donated a beer prize from the beer club I run, and I happened to choose on that particular occasion, and because they are very colourful, I thought it looked good on the raffle table, I did choose a dozen Magic Rock cans. And someone did say to me, you're just giving people cans of pop. And that's what, so they're not on the craft beer scene, that's the first thing they thought of. But for me, that doesn't mean, that doesn't mean you're trying to attract a younger clientele.
No, because you've got. I suppose one of the things that's possibly missing from this is they've not gone back and looked at Tiny Rebel's branding per se.
No, because Tiny Rebel, the key bit about Tiny Rebel, which we'll all recognise, is the teddy bear.
Yeah, that's their logo.
That's their logo.
Yeah.
And that doesn't seem to have been specifically referenced.
No, it's the logo and the colours and the typeface and everything else. I think, I mean, to come to the third point that we said we'd reference as well is that the industry is the victim here. And yes, I have to agree with that because it's, are we going to get to a point where I think somebody made the comment on it, maybe all beers should just be in black cans with the name of the brewery and the name of the beer and then the ABV on it. Yeah,
but then we go back to how, if you think about bookmakers shops 30 years ago were just bland shop fronts. Now they're all bright colours, so Cole had their own one, Ladbrokes had their own one, Betfred had their own one. They all had their own branding and all colours outside. None of it really references gambling because the laws have changed. You can actually see into a bookies these days. 20, 30 years ago, that was only the preserve of a bloke with a cigarette who went into the bookies. Was really it. So now it's a lot more open. You can't, if you start closing things off in a democratic society, then that isn't a good route to go. I did see someone say, well, what about all the alcohol pops? I would say that my experience of those kind of drinks is that the labelling doesn't lend itself to really attract it.
No, it doesn't.
And whether that's on purpose or not is neither here nor there. If I go back to my days, early drinking, Hooch was around. I know Hooch has been rebranded and come out again, but Hooch, it wasn't about the branding for Hooch. It was just an easy drink.
It was that thing that got you to where you needed to get to. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
But it's not great. Hopefully it'll be a one-off.
I hope so, and if anybody wants to do anything to support Tiny Rebel over this, because obviously they've taken a massive financial hit on this as well, I would be, if you're in your local bottle shop and you see a can of the current version of Kutch, buy it, because actually it's going to be a collector's edition.
It will be a collector's edition. Not sure how well it'll age.
No, I wouldn't worry about you're not buying it to age the beer inside. Buy it for the labelling. So the other news story, which again quite surprising and came out of nowhere, was the announcement from Beavertown that they're closing Duke's Brewing Q, which is essentially the place where Beavertown started. So they put out a very short release about it and said there's no hidden scandal or drama behind the decision. The business is no longer a natural fit for Beavertown's future. Now, the reason why I mention this is because they've made a point of saying there's no hidden scandal or drama, but they put this release out and it's closing as of now. It's shut. Now,
on the run up to Christmas.
Yeah. 4 weeks before Christmas, you shut a restaurant.
But they must have been fully booked, surely.
I still think there's something more to this. I don't know what.
No, I do as well. And it's saying it's not a natural fit. Well, you say that, but people who have any interest in Beavertown would probably try to go there once.
Because it's that kind of...
birthplace of Beavertown.
Yeah, you want to visit the birthplace of a brewery, don't you?
We went there for your birthday a couple of years ago, didn't we?
Yes, yeah.
I didn't necessarily need to go back again, but it wasn't a massive place. So there's plenty of people who want to go for the first time. And there's plenty of people who are mourning it on Twitter that I saw.
Yeah.
I just think it was a unusually worded statement, I thought.
I thought so as well, and they've been quite vocal in saying no. People have challenged them. They said no, there's nothing hidden.
And maybe there isn't, but it doesn't. It feels like it is.
It seems like the wrong time of the year to close a restaurant business.
Yeah, it's almost like a few years ago when Heinz said they were going to, or Heinz were going to stop doing salad cream or something, and then suddenly the sales went up.
Yeah.
They never said they were going to actually stop right now. They just said, sales have gone down, we're going to stop doing it, and suddenly people start buying it. If they'd done that kind of thing, then I might have been a bit cynical. Well, it's a bit of a marketing ploy. They just want to get a bit more trading. But to just stop
and close it, yeah,
strange.
Very strange. Next one is on a story that we reported a couple of weeks ago, which was about the East Anglian brewery that was up for sale, which has now come to light that it was Redwell. Now,
which I think everyone fairly much...
And we suspected that, but we didn't want to put that speculation on a podcast and say, oh, well, this is Redwell that are up for sale. So it's come out that they were up for sale, and their future has now been secured. So they were put into administration on the 4th of December, and it's been purchased by a team of local investors who will ensure the beer and brand lives on and can fulfil orders and look to a bright future. So the new investors are currently talking to suppliers and local customers with an aim of securing future relationships. So good news there for the people that are involved.
Oh yeah, definitely.
They've still got jobs.
Definitely. So it'd be interesting if they get the chance to do anything else with it.
And if the beers change at all.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've only ever had Redwell in the can from a supermarket anyway. So maybe for a bit of investment they may get a bit further afield.
I think I might have had it on draft the couple of times I've been to Norwich.
Okay.
But yeah, like yourself, mostly canned version. Certainly since cans have been more widely available. Next up, we've got John Keeling has been named as the first chairman of the London Brewers Alliance. So in a recent meeting, the London Brewers Alliance decided that they wanted to formalise the group, the governing structure of the group.
Did they never have a chairman before then?
I don't think so.
So
no.
I
think it was like a kind of a voluntary group.
But that's what caught me out about this when I first read it. It's like, yeah, but the London Brewers Alliance has been around a while.
It has, but they've also at the same time they've appointed a deputy chairman, and they're looking at the roles. Those roles will now take the London Brewers Alliance through a 12-month review of the structure of the alliance as well. So it looks like they're looking to try and formalise something here. And I know again there was some speculation on Twitter after this that people were saying, well, this happens in London and then it starts cropping up all over the country. All of a sudden we've kind of got this independent body that people have been speaking for so long.
Yeah, well, I mean, the London Brewers Alliance, like I said, has been around a while, haven't they? Because that's one of my source references when I was first trying to get beers in for the beer club at work. So I was trying to really focus on the London stuff, especially for my Dutch and Belgian colleagues who came along just to showcase what we had in London. And going to the LBA was quite a good information resource. But yeah, I hadn't really picked up that they hadn't had that sort of formal structure. It feels like it was almost like a cooperative before.
Yeah.
But I mean, putting John Keeling at the head,
it's a great move, isn't it?
It's a very good move.
Absolutely.
You know, because so many people in London, in the UK, in the world of beer, know who John Keeling is.
Yeah.
So just by association, the London Brewers Alliance has notched up how many people will hear about it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then the last news story is that Siren have officially opened their 10-line tap yard now. So they've finally opened a tap room at the brewery in Finch Hampstead. So it's got 10 lines, 50 square metres, 100-person tap yard, open to the public on the 15th of December.
What's that open for one day? All that information for just one day?
It opened on the 15th of December. And it will now, going forward, will be open from 12 to 8 on a Friday and 12 to 7 on a Saturday, pouring the freshest Siren beers all year round. Tap yard fridges will also house every Siren beer, including every new collaboration with the likes of Brooklyn's Other Half. And this is great news for a friend of the show as well, they're also going to be having elusive brew beers in their fridges as well, which I think is just
great news for Andy.
Brilliant for Andy.
When he's got the time to buy even more beers.
Yeah, because you don't. His beers are few and far between, aren't
exactly.
they? That's
I remember I read that as well during the weekend. I think that's really good news. Siren again are one of those breweries that I nearly always love their beers, but they're quite under the radar at times.
Yeah, we said that when we featured some beers that they sent to us, didn't we? We said that they're kind of underrated, aren't they?
Yeah.
That people just don't shout about what Siren do.
Yeah. But very rarely am I left disappointed. They do quite a lot of different beers. I mean, they did that 4 coffee series beers.
Yeah.
Some were hits, some were misses. None were awful, but they tried a few things, and they do that quite regularly. And again, they do cask, keg, bottle.
And have you been to Siren before?
Nope.
It's quite a schlep to get to. So
yeah, because I mean, the nearest train station is Woking, and Woking's not that close to Finchampstead, is it?
No. Now they're on an industrial estate, so I'm assuming that they've obviously done some research in terms of how much business they're going to be able to pull in from the industrial estate, particularly on the Friday from 12 o'clock on a Friday, and how much from the local area. And I know in the past when they've done events, they've put on kind of a shuttle bus service as well from the station. There's no indication that that's going to happen.
No, I think basically it's public transport or taxi.
So if you want to get to it, you've got to get to it. Yeah.
So I think they'll let you know how to do it, but you're still going to have to do it yourself. I still think it'd be worth a visit.
Oh, absolutely.
I think you just have to do a little bit of planning.
Yeah. I think maybe we might need to pencil in a visit at some point. Yeah.
I'd agree with you on that, Steve.
Absolutely. So that's the end of the news this week.
Final-ish thoughts or continuing thoughts?
Continuing.
I mean, it looks beautiful in the glass, doesn't it? I mean, it's black, isn't it? You can't see through this in the glass.
It is as black as night. Even the head, when I mean, it's dissipated quite a lot now, but the head when we first poured it, it's dark brown,
and it leaves that sort of coffee-coloured film around the glass as well, doesn't it?
Mm.
Like when if you go to a red wine tasting and you sort of just moving it slowly around the glass when it's tilted at a 45-degree angle, it's just sort of hanging there still, isn't it?
It is. I mean, it's this is a beer that has certainly benefited from having a little bit of time on it.
Definitely.
As well.
Definitely, and obviously this quite nicely references back to our first show of the season, doesn't it? When we were doing cellaring with Justin and Matt about when's the right time. And I've got a couple of beers in my 12 beers of Christmas which I've decided I'm going to do because, as you and I have privately discussed a couple of times, what would happen if our house burned down, we got burgled, whatever it might be, and we did the Fuller's Vintage 2016, which was only a year on that, and that was stunning a couple of weeks ago. Absolutely stunning beer. This is 18 months coming up for that 2-year mark. And yes, it may well get better, but right now it's beautiful.
Possibly at a sweet spot.
Yeah.
So what I've done in an effort to try and compare these as we go through, I've tried to pick out 3 characteristics here that I think have come from this beer.
Okay.
So I've got dark fruits, dark chocolate, and it's got a very warming finish to it.
Yes.
Anything else that you would want to add to that list?
No. All I would say is for the warming, it hasn't got that alcohol burn.
No.
It's a very gentle.
It's just warming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a very gentle warming, so it hasn't got that sharpness or the burn.
Okay, and we'll try and do that if we remember as we go through.
That's a bit of a surprise.
I just thought that if we're going to try and do this comparison thing, I suppose ideally we probably should have had all the beers in the glass and tried a little bit of each.
I think you're taking this professional thing far too seriously.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. So, it's time for that part of the show.
Opinions, 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 opinions.
So the question was, can you name your beer of 2017, which is becoming a bit of an annual question for us at this point of the year, because we do like to try and do a little bit of the whole Golden Pints thing on the podcast as well. So just in what we had this year, we had 206 votes. 65% of people said yes, that they could, and then we've got a load of comments. In comparison to last year, we had 165 votes. There were 3 options last year, and I think about 44% said yes, they could name their beer. So it probably weighs out to about the same.
Yeah,
average.
because we didn't give the third option.
Yeah. Last year there were around 57 beers put forward, and there was one very, very clear winner that came out of that, a beer that was mentioned time and time again.
So the Freeze Company.
And I think that was your beer of the year.
That was my beer of the
last year as well. This year we've had 80 odd different beers put forward. It might even, by the time we got to recording tonight, it might have gone to about 100 or so.
I think it might have been
beers.
more. I mean, that's not really a surprise, is it?
It's not. It's been a very varied year for beers this year.
And also, people are sort of spreading the answers this year felt like people were spreading their tastes around a bit more as well.
I think so. Absolutely. There were a lot of different styles.
Yeah.
Mentioned. Oh, excuse me. The
the beer's coming back.
The beer's getting to me there. So the 2 that stood out in terms of the amount of people that mentioned them above all others were, firstly, the one that had the most mentions was Cloudwater and the Vow collaboration, which was Chubbles, which was a triple IPA. Now, I didn't try that. I know you didn't try it either, so we can't comment on that. And then the second most commented one on, quite closely to that one, was again another Cloudwater collaboration, which was with Lost and Grounded and Verdant, which was Laurel and Hardy as well. Which
Okay,
was
I don't think I tried that either.
It was a Belgian triple style.
Okay.
So those were the ones that folk had said were their favourite beers of the year. Some of the comments we've had. So we're going to just go through the comments first, and then what we're going to do is, as opposed to last year where we gave you 3 shows worth of Golden Pints, we're just doing one this year.
Yeah, it's going to be 3 hours though.
Yeah, to make up for the lost time. And we're just going to focus when we do our Golden Pints tonight. We're just going to focus on the beers, the brewery, and then other things that we feel are most important to us as a podcast.
Yeah, especially things we've referenced over the year as well.
Yeah. So let's go through some of these comments. So, and a lot of these are very much in the same vein as well. So first up, A.D. Goodrich said, had so many great beers, it's too difficult to pick the best. And as I say, that was echoed again and again and again. So Jamie H. at Merchant of Shite. I know I say it every time, but I do love that handle. I've been keeping a list of the best new to me beers that I've had all calendar year. This is my leaderboard, and he tweeted a picture of it as well. Don't care how nerdy it sounds. Now, I don't think that's nerdy at all.
No, I actually quite like the best new to me bit, because on the Golden Pints Awards, one of the things we're not doing is there's a few things which are the best new, and I can never remember what it's new to this year. New to me. Always been around forever, and I just discovered it.
And we've tried to help ourselves this year with the Golden Pints by doing a monthly thing on Facebook as well, where we've done like monthly.
And to be fair, it has.
It has, and we'll come on to how that's helped in a while.
But I actually, it's not nerdy, and you're in the right place if you're nerdy anyway. To be
Absolutely,
fair.
yeah.
But we also had from Peter Maguire at Maguire 8, far too many great beers this year. Cloudwater, Magic Rock, and Verdant have been the most consistently good beers in my opinion.
Again, I think that was echoed by quite a few people.
That was echoed. I mean, and if these are the opinions that people are echoing, and that says something about how we're doing for beer at the moment as well. But these are the answers people are giving. I can't choose my beer because there's so many good ones.
Yeah.
Well, actually, just on that, I mean, there was a comment quite late on that I saw on Twitter from Miles, which said that your beer of the year doesn't have to be a new beer as well. And I thought that was actually quite a good comment.
It was, and I've always struggled with that because I always kind of thought it did have to be a new beer that I had tried in that year.
Yeah, and I think if you look at my Golden Pints that I've done over the last 2 years and this one, I've done the opposite. I
did this year. For the first time, I kind of relaxed my own rules on it this year because I was like, no, actually, if I'm having a beer this year that is maybe, I don't know, been in production for 3-4 years, and it's reached its peak this year, then why can't that be beer of the year? Exactly.
But I thought it was just give a little, because that was quite a late on shout from Miles, and I thought that was a really good shout. Graham at Solander Graham, I can't choose just one. A trip to California served up Pliny. Is it Pliny or Pliny? I never know.
I don't know. Let's go with Pliny.
I'll go Pliny and Pliny. General Sherman, Ale Smith, and loads of other amazing beers. I've been lucky boy this year and tried dozens of exceptional beer. This might have something to do with my fuzzy, indecisive brain. But it's all the Pliny and Pliny you've been having, which incidentally I still have never had any of those. Rach at Uk Brewery, that first cask pint of Harvey's Sussex Best I'd had after being off the booze for 9 months was bloody glorious. Definitely my beer of the year. #opinions.
Yeah. Now, obviously, there was a reason why Rach was off the beer for 9 months there. And
it wasn't just for the sheer hell of it.
Congratulations to the new arrival there. The Owl Lady, and this is one that
I didn't want to mention this one.
I can really appreciate this.
I was going to cross this one out.
The most magical pint experience had to be that pint of Jaipur served at the Thornbridge Brewery, which obviously I was there for, and Miles was there for, and yes, it was that good.
I'm saying nothing.
Okay. And then finally we've got from £300 Cyclist and Miles Lambert. This was kind of almost a joint tweet from them.
This little bit, this quote you're going to read out wasn't the only bit of the Twitter exchange. It became a bit of a loving.
There was more of it, but this is the one that kind of brings it all to life. Is genuinely the best beer experience was the 8-year-old bottle of Bourbon County Stout that £300 Cyclist shared with me for the final beer of 24 in 24 was incredible for a whole myriad of reasons. Now, there are a couple of things I want to say on this. Yes, it did become a loving after that comment of I think Miles then said, I know that sounds really sort of like pompous and snobby, but it was. Secondly, I've got to say that if you've not been listening to what Miles has done with the 24 beer reviews, go back and have a listen, especially listen to the ones in the early hours of the morning where it
the ones where it
like,
goes, this was recorded at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock and 3 o'clock. You might think there's 2 people on each recording. There isn't. There's only one.
Yeah, it's just Miles having a conversation with himself.
He's like he's got his little self on his shoulder.
Yeah.
But it's... I can imagine, because I'm about 2/3 of the way through now and he's 24 and 24, but I can also imagine that beer, after some of the beers he'd had during the day as well, when he was trying to really keep that quite light, lowish ABV to go through the whole period, that must have been like amber nectar.
Yeah, because I think I'm up to date with them as we sit here right now. And yeah, he's trying to do his best to stay to an average of I think about 3.5 on the beers. So yeah, it must have been nice to have had something that was just completely different.
Because that would have been hell for you. A lot of the beers he chose, because to achieve that, he chose a lot of those beers like sours and saisons, the low version of all those beers. But yeah, I think just to expand a little bit on what they were saying, it was also the fact that they said they were sharing it.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just they'd cracked open a bottle each or anything like that and had it separately. It was the actual sharing of it. And yeah, I imagine for Miles at that point, he was also quite happy to talk to someone.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, which is obviously what we're about to do, because our next beer, and it's not an 8-year-old bottle of Bourbon County Stout. This one's only 2 years old. This is from 2015. This was given to us by Goose Island after we'd done the 2 Goose Island shows. This was one of the takeaway beers.
That was over a year ago, wasn't it?
I know. And we've been kind of waiting for the opportunity to do it, and obviously this show is the perfect opportunity to do that. So while you're just decanting that into your glass, we are about to go into our Golden Pints for this year, and I think it's probably right at this point to do a little nod back to where Golden Pints came from. So started in 2009 by Mark Dredge and Beer Reviews Andy, which there'll be a link in the show notes if you want to go back and look at the very first ever suggestion of the Golden Pints. And then the list was updated in 2015, and that's also in the show notes as well if you want to look to the more updated list. And then I think you and I decided we'd take our own slant on it last year, and we added to that list in terms of a beery podcast of the year as well, because it's what we do.
Yeah, so we wanted to give a shout out to the medium that we use.
Yeah, and I think if you look back over the last 12 months, there's been an explosion of beer podcasts.
Oh God, yeah.
In the
Goodness
UK.
knows what men behaving badly would do if there wasn't 208 characters now.
Exactly, yeah. So I actually wonder whether, I know we've got that at the bottom of our list, but should we start there in terms of the beer podcast of the year for our lists?
Yeah, go on then. Why not?
Yeah. Should we have a drink of the beer?
Yeah, definitely. It's been in my glass for at least 30 seconds.
Cheers. Oh, there's a different nose on that, isn't there? Straight away.
It's a massively different nose. Now, I can't remember. Have you had this on keg?
No, I've not. I didn't go to that night that you all went to and got completely destroyed, drinking it like it was water.
Well, wasn't it? No, sorry. I can't remember whether it was 2015 or 2016 they were pouring a keg, but they opened in 2015 at the same time. It has got a very different flavour profile and nose.
It's a lot sweeter.
Yeah.
Sweetness is really ramped up in
so
that.
What ABV was the 200,000? I don't think we actually said, did we?
That was 10%.
Right, so we've gone from 10 and we've jumped to 14.3.
Is that what this one is?
Yeah. Because I managed to get a couple of these to do when I did the beer and wine tasting at work, And so I was choosing the beers, and the guy who runs the wine tasting club put this up against a really lovely full-bodied red wine. And I still got those comments come back to me. So 750 bottle red wine at 14.5% versus a 500 milliliter 14.3 beer, and everyone go, "Oh, that's strong."
No, it's the same as the wine.
It was
Yeah.
technically it was 0.2 less, and it was in a smaller bottle. But everyone's going, "Oh, that's really strong. I don't know if I can drink that." While they're holding a full glass of red wine,
Yeah.
it's like, "Oh, come on! I wasn't asking you to down it. No, it's still a beer to be savoured." I haven't had the I don't know if I've tried the 2015 at all this year. It's feeling really rich and velvety, isn't it?
It is, but mouthfeel wise, it feels a little bit thinner than the two.
Oh, do you think so?
Yeah, I think that had a much thicker, velvety, smooth feel to it. This has got that, but it's also got a little bit more life in it. There's a little bit more fizz, a little bit more tang in there.
Yeah, it's got a bit more of the carbonation. Yeah, you're right. Actually, the initial 200 Fathoms, blimey, that's full.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
I mean, that was velvety smooth.
Yeah.
This is smooth, but it's a little bit rough around the edges.
Yeah.
And I'm beginning to think we maybe have done this in the right way now, because I'm expecting the Ola Dubh will be quite a lot lighter in mouthfeel.
Yeah, it could be. No, in mouthfeel it definitely will be, I think.
Yeah.
In mouthfeel it will be. In flavour profile, I'm still confident about it.
Yeah. So, podcast of the year then, Beery podcast of the year. What have you got for this?
Okay, as you said, there has been a real explosion of them. However, and I am doing my best to try and catch up on all the episodes that everyone is releasing. So if you could have a little bit of a break like we do,
There's a
it'd
lot,
be really
yeah,
handy
yeah.
actually. So a couple of honourable mentions. I mean, we recorded at the start of the year with Beernomicon. Still love their shows. I love the interaction between Tom and Ross. I think it's really good. Started listening to obviously Rhythm and Brews, who we did some work with this year as well. I say work, sorry, drank beer with, and listened to music in inverted commas, and Men Beer Behaving Badly, which I actually quite like. I do like the name. And again, all of these have a different slant. I think that's what I've really enjoyed, is the different take all the time, and that's what's been really good about it. My standouts are a couple of old favourites still. So my standout ones are Stephen Rowland's Beer Podcast, who review the Beer Bods beer once a week. I no longer subscribe to Beer Bods for no other reason than I have enough beer in the house anyway without having subscription boxes. But I still love their 10-minute reviews when it's Stephen Rowland, or their 15 to 20-minute reviews when it's Rowland and Gary.
Agree. Yeah.
And I've ordered some of the beers purely on the basis of some of their reviews. Irish Beer Snobs, not only because I know both of them, but because I love the interaction between Wayne and Janice on the air. It's brilliant. And Wayne and Janice, when you do listen to this, we're still not getting enough podcasts out of you. Despite the pep talk me and Steve gave you at about 12:30 on the Saturday night in Dublin in February. We need more podcasts from you both. And Miles, not for his Podvent Canada, but for him and Rob, what they were doing. I love the Jedi Master and Padawan relationship about, I know about the beers, I want to share my knowledge, but I'm not being pretentious about it. So yeah, I've got my favourites are definitely Irish Beer Snobs and Stephen Rowland. Plenty of honourable mentions at the moment though.
So who takes it for you?
It's going to be Stephen Rowland.
I think that's a good shout actually, because it's like you say, in terms of consistency. I think we're fairly consistent in our output. That they do put a podcast out every week.
Yeah.
And you know, there is a lot of effort that goes into putting a podcast out. So hats off to them, and yeah, they certainly feature in my honourable mentions as well. But like you say, I think it's been a massive year for beer podcasting in the UK right now, and I know some people enjoy listening to the more produced podcasts, but I still like listening to something that sounds real and raw, and it's just people enjoying themselves. So my honourable mentions go to Rhythm and Brews, because I do enjoy the interaction between Luke and Andrew.
I enjoyed the interaction. I just need less of the music,
less
less of the rhythms,
more of the brews. Yeah, and also a massive honourable mention to Miles at the North East Sipping Forecast as well, because I love what they're trying to do there. I think it's brilliant. And I think that one episode when they introduced Dr. Hop and the little jingle that he put together was possibly the funniest thing I've heard all year.
Where every time it came up with the word, he had to put the hop in.
Yes,
it had Miles.
Yeah, absolutely. But for me, and this was literally a decision I've made in the last 24 hours in terms of my beery podcast of the year, and there's a reason for it as well. I'm going for Men Behaving Badly. I think what Ashley, Tom and Mark are doing there really takes me back to when I started the Beer O'Clock show with Mark, where we were on this journey of discovering beer, and they're still at the beginning of that journey, and it's brilliant to hear that kind of naivety at the beginning as they're just discovering what beer is, and they're trying to explore different things, and I think it's great. And I think the level, obviously they're clearly mates, you can tell that.
Oh, you can tell that with the interaction
and the way they interact.
straight away.
But I'm really enjoying their stuff at the moment. So for me, yeah, like I say, men Behaving Badly take the podcast of the year for me this year.
Okay, well done. Well done, MBB.
Yes, and well done, Stephen Rowland, as well. So let's get into actually let's work our way back up. Let's work our way up to the beers of the year, because they should be last, shouldn't they?
Okay,
as the biggest things.
I like the way you change it while we're discussing. You just have a thought, don't you, and share it as we go.
I do, yeah.
So are we going to stick with the? So we're literally going to go back up.
Let's go back up the list. So while we're talking kind of online communication, best beer blog of the year. Again,
a couple of honourable mentions, and then I'll say the winner. And again, this is closely aligned to my voting for last year as well. So honourable mentions go to Miles Lambert and Pete McCurry, because they just get to the point. In both of their blogs are written differently, both of them get to the point, and what really nails it for me is that when they do release a blog, I want to read it straight away.
Agree. They're the ones that I will literally read when I see it come up.
Rather than
there are some others that I'll say,
put it to a various like Pocket or something like that, or Feedly. But that one, those two are definitely the ones that I will definitely try to read straight away. And because I also know, especially with Pete, it's going to be a certain length, I know that I can read it fairly promptly.
Yeah.
Because Pete just sort of nails it in about 2 screens worth, even on a mobile phone. However, the winner, and again this is also my 2016 winner, is Mark Johnson at Beer Compilation, because again he takes on a wide range of subjects, usually all still related to beer, and he just has a really eloquent way of writing, which I know I haven't posted anything for a few months now, but I don't, and he manages to find a way of writing that still doesn't talk down to you or be pretentious, gets to the point, but gets to the point in a different way to Miles and Pete. And at the end of it, I'm thinking, I actually could have read a bit more about that. If he'd done it a bit longer, it would still be doing good. And he's released a couple in the last month, really good.
Yeah,
it's like he had a bit of a lull in the summer where wasn't quite maybe feeling it, whatever. The last couple of ones have been really good actually.
I'm with you on both Pete and Miles in terms of reading what they come out. I was really enjoying earlier on in the year when Michael Lally was doing his 3 Bullet Tuesday. Yeah, which created lots of discussion.
Lots of discussion points actually. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Well, it's up for one of those that we had him on the show.
And yeah. Absolutely, and you know, it was a shame to see that stop actually, because I did enjoy the brevity of it as well. Again, it was one that you could read really quickly. But I am with you on my beer blog of the year, which has got to be Mark. He's been consistently good all year long, and like you say, in the last few weeks, it's almost like he's been ramping up for Golden Pints season in terms of.
Well, it's a bit like when filmers bring out their producers bring out their films just in time for the Oscars.
Yeah, the one in particular that he wrote about beer snobbery at Christmas, I think was brilliant. It just summed up so much, and I know we touched on the discussion
Yeah.
a few weeks back, but he really brought to life what we were saying.
Yeah.
And I think in that
Oh
discussion.
yeah, no. Again, and like I said, he did. Like I said, the last couple really felt like, and I'm sure if I'm wrong, he'll correct us, but it felt like they flowed.
Yes.
It felt like they weren't a struggle, and it felt like they just sort of came out. And
Absolutely.
They read really well.
So unanimously,
Yeah.
we give our Golden Pint.
I go to Pint. So Mark Johnson, you are Golden Pints winner. Did you vote for him last year as well?
I didn't. He got an honourable mention
Ah.
last year. I think I went for Pete last year, purely on quickness of reading. So I've got a very low boredom threshold. I really have. I can manage about 3 paragraphs, and then you've lost me. So next one is the Simon Johnson Award for the best beer Twitterer. I'm going to go straight in with this one. That there are a lot of people that are really good and engaging on Twitter. There are loads, you know. So there could be honourable mentions going on all day. But I think for consistency of engagement and providing something that you want to get involved in as well, has got to be Craft Beer Hour every Tuesday. Tom running Craft Beer Hour, getting involved in that hashtag. For me, that's my beer Twitterer of the year. I would also give an honourable mention. It's only been going for a few weeks. If it had been going all year, it probably would have won it. The twat quiz that Miles does, I think, is just the perfect precursor to Craft Beer Hour.
It's good timing.
It's
very good
absolutely
timing.
perfect.
Yeah, I think those two go quite nicely hand in glove at the moment. Actually, I think people have quite a decent little bit of a run up now, a little bit of a warm up to Craft Beer Hour. For me, it's two guys who don't really do anything very formally in terms of their Twitter profile, but Sparky Wright, because he keeps changing his Twitter name regularly,
which is almost as great as his tweets. Yeah.
And also because we have outside of the beer, we have a similar interest with the running as well. And Steve at Beer Nouveau, because sometimes he's just so very cutting and dry with his comments as well. And just something I want to add here, obviously we're recording this on the Monday, and at the weekend I think Beer Nouveau had a break-in.
Yeah.
Which is very sad to hear about, Steve. And I could see from all the comments on social media, but there was a lot of sadness and love, and people wanted to help out. And I saw that you still had a party that night as well. So yeah, really sorry to hear about the break-in, because I've loved my one visit up there at the start of this year. Loved meeting you, but please carry on being as cutting and dry on Twitter as you are now.
I was just it was devastating to hear that happened. I was pleased they didn't take any of the barrels with beer.
Someone did actually ask, and I thought, I'm so glad someone else did that before me. But yeah, so for me, it's fairly much joint winners on those two.
Okay, so they're kind of our online communication awards section.
Sort of what we get involved in all the time, isn't it?
Absolutely. Let's have a little dip back into the beer.
Well, mine seems to have gone down a lot quicker than yours.
I know. I've been talking though.
No, that's true.
I've got to say, I'm getting a little hint of something a little bit toasted, like maybe a hint of coconut, maybe.
I'm not getting that. Not getting coconut, which is a good thing. For me, I'm starting to get that hint of burnt wood. Definitely for me.
And again, I think without properly researching it, isn't that a characteristic of that's what makes a bourbon? Is that they actually burn the barrels?
They burn the inside of the barrels, don't
Yeah.
they? Because, again, maybe we would be really good if we did research one day, wouldn't we?
Maybe we should actually.
Should we try that?
Research.
New Year's resolution, we'll do research for one show. Just for one show.
Yeah.
See what people think. They don't use the same barrel every time, do they? So
No, I think they only use the barrel once.
Yeah, but they use the barrel and char the inside.
Yeah.
And I feel that, again, I wasn't getting that initially. So, we have shared a 500 millilitre bottle, and I'm halfway through my pour, and it's only now that I'm starting to get that sort of burnt notes.
But it's not a burn on the alcohol.
No, again, it's not.
It is the burnt wood, but it's still very, very sweet.
It's that slightly burnt toast almost.
Yeah, a toasted feel.
Yeah.
Okay, so while we finish off the...
Still doesn't feel like 14.3 though.
It doesn't at all, and that's worrying considering what we've still got to come. So let's get into... let's start getting into the beers.
Beer.
Then. So first one, supermarket of the year. So this is in terms of which supermarket has really done it for you this year in terms of supplying your beery needs.
Okay, this is probably going to be of very little surprise to most people who know me, and even if you don't know me and you may have listened just every now and again, M&S.
Okay, fairly standard. They
appear at near enough every mainline train station that I use, and even the ones that I don't very often, they're just there. The choice and accessibility every now and again might be a bit samey from one M&S to the next, but they generally have at least half a dozen that I will pick up.
And they did start stocking Magic Rock this year as well.
Well, Magic Rock this year, Stone from Berlin this year. They already had Northern Monk and Forpure. And they've always had a few own brand Adnams and a few own brand, in the early days especially, still now Greenwich Mean Time as well. So straight away you've probably got, half a dozen. I was probably even underestimating it. And they are, there's 3 within a minute of Liverpool Street Station alone.
Mm-hmm.
So, accessibility in the bigger stores. The only thing I would say, and I will caveat this, is that if anyone from M&S has any influence at all, your stock rotation is rubbish, both in the fridges and on the shelf. You wouldn't do
we saw this with Stone IPA in Sheffield, didn't we?
Yeah, and also I saw it with Northern Monk as well, in one of the London stores. M&S have always been very careful about not selling produce past its best before. I mean, it's only the last 5 or 6 years where you can actually buy reduced stuff in M&S. They never used to do the reduced foods. It used to just go. Treat your beers the same. It has the best before date, near enough every beer they sell. Just pay attention to it. You can go to a fridge in an M&S, especially in the train station, and have 3 different dates in the first 3 or 4 cans. But they still win it because I can get to an M&S without having to plan, and they still will have a very good choice.
Mm-hmm. I think for me, and we've covered this a number of times on the podcast in the last year, 2017 has been very much the year of the supermarket, hasn't it? We saw that explosion early on in the year of Tesco's suddenly stocking Stone IPA, and not just Stone, but a craftier range of Thornbridge beers and all these other beers that you could suddenly get on Tesco shelves, and it's from there on in. What you've been able to get in supermarkets is just amazing. I mean, I still marvel at the fact that I can go into Asda and buy a 4-pack of Jack Hammer for £8.
Oh, it's brilliant. But Northern Monk 4-packs at Morrison's. Yeah. The only supermarket which seems to have gone the other way is Sainsbury's.
Who have stopped doing anything really, really crafty.
These are the guys who were doing the Great British Beer Hunt 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And yes, that was very traditional, but it was still brought in a lot of different types of beers. And they seem to have just gone,
Yeah. Oh well, we'll just carry on doing what we're doing.
Well, we'll let everyone else do their stuff, and we'll do what we want to do. It's like they don't care anymore.
So for me, it's a really tough call between Morrison's and Tesco's. I literally can't split them. The thing that does split them is that I can buy New World IPA in Morrison's,
and that's it.
So on that reason alone, for me, Morrison's gets Supermarket of the Year this year.
Okay, I mean, I haven't got my closest Morrison's probably is your one.
Probably, yeah.
Which isn't that close to me, really.
It's not, and I can't actually get New World IPA from that one. I have to go to Malden, which is kind of 4 miles in the other direction, because it's a bigger Morrison's than my local one.
Terrible. But the choices in supermarkets, and we have done quite a bit about supermarkets this year, has been fantastic, and long may it continue.
Absolutely, and I think it will. I think it will now continue to get better and better.
Apart from Sainsbury's.
Maybe Sainsbury's need to up their game. And I'll tell you who else needs to up their fucking game while we're at it. Aldi in England, because Aldi's Scottish craft beer selection is amazing from pictures that I've seen online.
I was going to say, how do you know that?
I've seen pictures on Twitter where Aldi Scotland do the most amazing range of local Scottish brews. So they're stocking some really craft stuff. We get none of that in England, and I think Aldi need to be more consistent across their offering. That's all I'm going to say.
Ooh, that was a bit of a rant.
I know, a bit of a rant.
Do you feel better for that?
I do feel better for that. So, best UK brewery.
Okay, it might be a bit of a spoiler alert for further on then. Thornbridge.
Any reasoning for that, or just straight in with?
No. I'm firstly, because of their online shop. Their online shop,
which you've enjoyed.
I've enjoyed a few times this year now.
Yeah.
It's so very easy to navigate. It's free postage, which is like worth a couple of beers sometimes, depending on who you're ordering from. And they do deliver rather promptly as well. And all the beers which came through in the 2 or 3 deliveries I've had from Thornbridge this year weren't ones that they just dug out from the warehouse. They're all quite fresh ones as well. The Jaipur X was fantastic, which I had in my home delivery as well. One of the best versions I've had of it. It's just easy. But also, I do love having Cask and Keg Thornbridge beer. It's been, for me, maybe I've just got hold of it a bit more this year. A couple of obvious reasons which we'll explore, but it's almost like I've been reminded that Thornbridge, and probably part of that was you, Miles, and the owl lady going there earlier this year around about Easter time. They've been there for a long time now. And it's, again, I don't know if they get overlooked, it's probably not the right word, but because they have been there, I'm not sure they don't get taken for granted sometimes.
I think it's that they're taken for granted because they've been around for so long.
Yeah, they make consistently good beers. I trust what they give me. I trust their output. And if someone said, "Oh, this is a new beer from Thornbridge," I probably wouldn't even ask what it is. I'd say, "Okay, I'll give it a go." I wouldn't bother thinking about it. So yeah, best UK brewery, Thornbridge.
Now I struggled with this one this year. I really did, because I was finding it really difficult to find a way of singling out a brewery that is worthy of the beer of the year, not the beer of the year, of the brewery of the year. So I ended up with a whole list of them, and essentially I did come up with a winner.
I'd love to know how you narrowed down that list, but we probably haven't got time for that.
The thing that it came down to with the brewery of the year was much the same as it was consistency in terms of their output and how much I've enjoyed that output. So I'm going to give honourable mentions here, and all of these are for
I didn't give any honourable mentions. I need to give a couple of honourable mentions, but you carry on.
So all of these are for consistency. Buxton, Marble, Lost and Grounded, Thornbridge and Weirdbeard, for me, this year, have produced consistently good beers. All of them. The thing that set my winner apart was the range of beers, the way the beers were dispensed, and how good those beers were when they tasted them. And I had to go for Magic Rock this year, because every time I've tried a new Magic Rock beer, or I've gone back to an old favourite in a can, or I've visited the tap room, their beers, I've never been disappointed by Magic Rock beer this year.
No, and we've had Cannibal a couple of times this year on Keg as well.
Yeah.
And it's been spot on.
Yeah.
So yeah, I Magic Rock would be one of, if I'd written down my honourable mentions. Again, one day we'll be professional about the whole thing. Honourable mention would have been Magic Rock, and the other one would have been an old favourite of mine, Adams, because for me they still churn out.
I didn't even think of Adams.
An amazingly consistent cask range, as well as nailing a craft beer range under a regional brewery banner as well.
Yeah, agree.
So they still do both for me. Those would be my honourable mentions.
Okay. So we're into the big ones now.
The beer.
The beer itself. So before we get into that, I suppose finalish thoughts on the Bourbon County.
I mean, again, you could just spend a lot of time just moving it around the glass, just looking at that colour on the outside, on the inside of the glass, couldn't you? It looks beautiful. It's a very, I still think it's I've only had, just so we know, at best I've had 2015 and 2016. So I haven't got many things to measure this one against in terms of
I've
Goose
only
Island.
had 2015.
But for a 14.3% beer, I still think this is a very, very drinkable beer.
Okay, so like we did with the Irish
Yeah.
one, key characteristics here. I've got that it's sweet. It's a lot sweeter than
It's
the
definitely
Irish
sweeter than the first
version.
one. It's not. I think you're right. It's not as velvety or as viscous as the first one. It's definitely got that burnt wood, slightly toast characteristics, but still very subtle.
And there's maybe a hint of what I'm getting now is a little hint of roasted notes on the end of it.
Yeah, very subtle.
Yeah,
And
very subtle.
Like I say, very much at the back end of the tasting process.
Okay, so as we finish this then, let's do, because what we've done this year is we've, in an effort to try and make this as fair, interesting,
Or as pain-free as possible, Steve's put me through the pain of having to name my beers of the month.
for the last, and to be fair, it's only 11 months, isn't it? Because we're not including December in this.
One beer has sneaked in here, which will be a December beer.
All right.
So what Steve does is, with about 5 days before the month end, remind me to do the beers of the month.
Sometimes you remind me and send me an email, and I'm like, oh yeah, it's that time of the month again.
And then he says, which one is the actual beer of the month? I go, oh shit, I thought we'd done so well there.
So we've been doing the posts on our Facebook page where we've done beers of the month, and we've basically broken them down into their dispense method. So we've done cask, keg, and we started off doing kind of a joint sort of small package thing. And then you split it into
I split it quite early, didn't I?
So what we're going to do now is we're going to go through our cask beer of the year, our keg beer of the year, our bottled beer of the year, and our can beer of the year.
So we're going to do our top 3 from each one?
Top 3 from each one, and then that will give us our winners that then go into the overall pot for...
you know, these guys can barely wait to hear what we're about to say.
Absolutely. If people have sat through this long of us rambling on, you know, they must be
ready.
Yes. So first up then, let's start with cask beer of the year. Martin, you are the cask aficionado of us, so you can go first.
Okay, so I'm going to go in traditional fashion, reverse order.
Nice.
So in third place, 5 Points Railway Porter. In second place, Adnams Ghost Ship. And in first place, Thornbridge Jaipur.
Good selection. Any reasoning behind that? Or?
You give your 3.
Okay.
And then we'll discuss.
So in third place, Track Sonoma.
Yep.
Second place, and it was a tough one. First and second place was really tough for me. And there was one thing that ended up swinging the first place for me, and we'll come to that. So in second place was Legitimate Industries Cherry Belgian Quad, which I had up at Dark City, which was by far and away the beer of the festival for me. That was close to being my cask beer of the year. But then I remembered that I had Thornbridge Jaipur at the tap room.
So I'm going to get it mentioned twice.
And I couldn't... In the end, it was the experience of drinking the beer at the brewery that won that for me. So pretty much a joint award.
Okay, so we've both gone for the same first beer.
Yeah.
Okay, so my my reason, Adnams Ghost Ship, as everyone knows, is one of my go-to. Well, it's my go-to beer. If you look at my Untapped, it's definitely my go-to beer.
Definitely.
I'm lucky enough where I am to have it be able to get it quite regularly on cask as well. I love it in the bottle, and also my train company, when I get the Intercity train, that's one of their cans that they have as well. So I'm exposed to it quite often. The 5 Points Railway Porter, I had a bottle of it recently, and it just reminded me of the couple of times this year when I had it on cask, and one of the times was in the summer, and it's so good. Railway Porter is about 4.5%, and there's so much flavour in that 4.5%. And yes, I love it in bottle. In cask, it's a beautiful, beautiful beer. The Thornbridge Jaipur, I've always loved Jaipur. It was my craft beer awakening moment back in 2011. But this year I've been exposed to a bit more of it, either by ordering it online or by drinking almost the whole stock of it in Sheffield at the start of December, wherever I saw it, especially in the Sheffield tap, which we managed to visit on the Friday, the Saturday and the Sunday.
Yep.
In a less than 48-hour period, we visited the Sheffield tap 3 times. and I think I fairly much had Thornbridge Dry Port consistently every beer I had in there.
It was the only beer you would drink in that place. Yeah.
Okay, and it was absolutely brilliant. I thought also because I don't get it on cask enough. Every now and again I see it on keg. Don't get it on cask very often. The cask is beautiful. 5.9%. It's actually not. It's not sessionable, is it?
No, it's
5.9.
Yeah.
That's not sessionable. But flavour profile and drinkability, I do think it is sessionable. And although I've not had it in its homeland, and I'm still not bitter about that at all, it's definitely my cask beer of the year this year. Just because, and also because because where I've had it, the Sheffield tap at the train station at Sheffield, as you said before, and no matter how well you say it, you don't do it justice. It's a beautiful building.
It is a beautiful building, and it's a permanent line in there as well, so they know how to look after it.
Yeah, and they had looked after it that weekend as well.
So like I say, I mean, without all joking aside, it was the drinking of it in the Thornbridge building that did push that to the beer of the year for me, cask beer of the year for me, because without a doubt that legitimate industry's cherry Belgian quad was fucking outstanding.
I mean, that little picture you took of it.
Yeah, it
looks
was
amazing. What percentage is that?
It was like 11 or something percent. It was ridiculous, but it didn't even taste it. So for a while that was going to take it, and then I was like, no, I had Jaipur at Thornbridge, and that's the only way you can. But when you get a beer at the tap room.
But don't you think that's it? I mean, you had it at the tap room at the Thornbridge, as close as you could have it.
Yeah.
To where it's made. I had it at what could be classed as one of its spiritual homes.
Yes.
Because near enough everyone who works at
Absolutely.
Thornbridge seems to live in Sheffield or the Sheffield area. And that is part of it, isn't it?
Yeah, without a doubt.
Especially if you're talking about cask or keg, it's where you have it as well. Because bottle or can is where we're at home.
Yeah, but the environment plays a lot.
Plays a part, and I think that was definitely part of my. As much as I love Thornbridge Nightport, part of it is where it was and who I was with, and some of it I can remember as well.
Only some of it.
Only some of it.
And then just my third choice, Track Sonoma, a beer that I've consistently said is probably the best beer at its ABV in the UK.
Yeah,
we've had it on cask and keg this year, but for me, that could only. In terms of the other two, it's a great beer. It's a fantastic beer, but for me, those other two just had something a little bit more special about them.
Yeah, and
for me.
There's nothing to take away from Track Sonoma, and that would be an honourable mention for me because for a sub 4% beer,
amazing.
Yeah,
and now that's a sessionable beer.
That is a sessionable beer.
So moving on to our keg beer of the year, and I'll take the lead on this one.
I think that's appropriate.
In third place, I've gone for Magic Rock's Kentucky Common Grounds, which was our first beer when we walked into the Leeds International Beer Festival.
What else would you have when you go to a beer festival?
7%. Worked really well at that point. And then again, my first and second place I struggled over because they were both beers that I enjoyed in their tap rooms. And they were both beers that tasted amazing in that environment. And eventually what won out here was the day and what that day bought. So in second place is Buxton's Axe Edge, which I once again was lucky enough to enjoy at the tap house in Buxton.
And they have opened
a tap room at the brewery.
A tap room at the brewery now, haven't they?
Yeah. But the winner of my keg beer of the year is Stone IPA at the Stone Bistro in Berlin.
I'm fine about it.
Because I was just like, for a long time, again, Buxton's Axe Edge was winning this, and then I sat down for a moment. I was like, yeah, but that day in Berlin, and I was like, yeah, Stone IPA was amazing. So
I think Clayton put that as a late shout on Twitter as well, didn't he?
Yeah,
I think that was. It's about the day as well, isn't it? Because that day you were there, as I've said before,
it was beautiful.
You had one of those beautiful, autumnal, clear blue sky days. It looked wonderful. The building, the beer, got to chat to a few people. It
was great, yeah. So those are my top three.
I mean, that's a very good top three. Keg Beer of the Year in third place is the aforementioned Track Sonoma.
Interesting, you went for the keg version.
Yes,
over Cask.
I know. So
that's really interesting.
But I think I actually said that on the night as well.
You did, and you've said it a few times since as well. Yeah.
So there's not many things that, again, for the Manchester Beer Festival, it went a bit hazy towards the end of the night, but we had that on Cask and Keg quite early on, side by side, and I did say at the time, I thought the keg version just adds that little bit of life to it. Maybe because it's a bit lower ABV, just added that bit of fizz and sparkle. Number two, I think, is your number three, is the Magic Rock Kentucky Common Grounds, because yes, it was fabulous.
Simply amazing, wasn't it? Yeah.
You know, and as soon as we got into that Leeds Beer Festival and we were in the Magic Rock tent, which is the first thing you come into, we stopped.
Yeah.
We actually hadn't made it as far as the actual beer festival.
Didn't one of us have to go off and buy tokens to then come back to be able to pay for the beer?
Oh, I saw those out.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was like, no, we've got to have it.
Yeah,
because it might run out.
I
never heard it did.
No, but that's the worry, that you're always going to miss out.
It's got to run out. But my Keg Beer of the Year is the Colonel IPA Equinox Secret.
That one.
Steve, do you remember that one?
We drank lots of pints of that.
Yeah. So Rhythm and Brews
to the point
may
where
also.
I don't remember getting home.
You don't remember me getting the taxi
no,
last year?
No.
So Andrew and Luke from Rhythm and Brews may remember this particular evening. This is when we had our meet and greet. A little bit of a discussion about what we're going to do on the show, and then we didn't bother discussing the show, and then went back to just drinking beer. Went to the Craft Beer Co in London and ended up just drinking Colonel IPA Equinox Secret, which comes in at about 6.7%, and just carried on.
I'd have to give that one an honourable mention.
It's definitely
because I think that was one of that was a beer of the month for me.
Yeah, it was our beer of the month the same month.
Yeah, but didn't quite make it into my top three.
I just thought
in the end,
it was just, I can still picture us just drinking it and thinking how good it was.
Yeah, it was a great beer.
And again, another brewery which doesn't quite get the headlines.
Yeah. So we've got the final beer in our glass.
I have poured the final beer. I haven't quite poured the whiskey yet. That's next.
We do need.
I'm going to do that.
We do need the whiskey to go with it. So shall I start off with the next category, which is the bottled beer of the year?
Yep.
So again, my top three. To be fair, if anybody's listened to the show in the last year, probably my winner is going to come as no surprise in this category.
I wonder if we agree on this one. I reckon we may have a joint winner again.
But 2 and 3 have kind of been interchangeable, but they're both from the same brewery anyway. So in third place was Buxton's Battle Horse, which came back again this year, which is an amazing double black IPA at 10%, which I love every time
I only had it for the first time.
I drink it. And you thought it was amazing.
I thought it was amazing.
And for the first time, it challenged your thinking as to, should I start giving fives?
It did. I did actually question.
There you go.
The fives.
In second place was a beer that I've revisited very recently as well. Buxton's Wyoming Sheep Ranch, which when I had it in the bottle, fairly fresh, just blew me away. And it was it's the first time I've had the new recipe of it as well, because there's two recipes of it on Untapped. There's the original version and there's a 2016 onwards version, and it was just everything I want from a double IPA. It was crisp, clear, bitter, perfect. The winner for me in this category though is Time and Tide Weird Beards Call Your Friends, which we did on a show a while back, and I think after the first 2 sips I might have screamed, this is going to be my up there in my beer of the year.
You did, and I wouldn't necessarily disagree with your interpretation, because that was, I mean, all three of those beers we did that night were fantastic. But before I say my top three,
we're going to have a drink now, aren't we?
We're going to have a drink. So we got the Hopinions.
Cheers. It's much lighter on the nose than the last two.
I'm getting burnt straight away on the nose.
A little bit of burnt sugar.
Yeah. It's definitely got. It hasn't got that mouthfeel.
It's a lot lighter.
Yeah.
I think
we basically stepped down to session now, haven't we? At 8%.
Absolutely. I think maybe the whiskey's a little bit more pronounced in it.
Mm-hmm.
There's some creamy flavours. I've always kind of, I don't know what it is about this beer, but I've always really thought of it like a liquid bread and butter pudding. It's kind of got that.
That's interesting because the breadiness I get,
the sweetness from the raisins, and that burnt sugar. It's kind of all in there for me.
So I've poured a wee dram of the Highland Park 1998. I've added a little splash of water.
Is that a thing to do with whiskey then?
I'm sure people will disagree, but for me, I don't want to add a mixer and I don't want to add ice. But for me, I add a little bit of water just to impart the flavour.
Okay.
It works for me.
Cheers.
Steve, for the benefit of the listeners, has pulled his cider saison
it's like it,
farmhouse.
It's like it burnt my nostrils.
Whereas for me, I think this is fantastic whiskey. But you're not
I've got
really...
to say, it's really smooth.
It is smooth, isn't it?
There's no burn to that. I was expecting like a really boozy burn.
Yeah, it's not. It's not... I think with the Highland Park, you still get some of the peat, but it's not overtly that smoky peatness you get from it.
I don't like peatiness.
No.
And that's not there for me. It's not there in either of them for me. Not sure I'm tasting the connection at the moment, but we'll see as it.
We'll give it a go. We've still got a
on.
few categories to go.
Yeah. So
yeah, my bottle of beer of the year. So in reverse order, Thornbridge Jaipur. Is it X or 10? What do they say? They say it's 10.
It's 10. Thornbridge Jaipur.
I thought this year's iteration was fantastic, especially having it bang on fresh as well. I thought it tasted really, really good. I think the first Jaipur 10 was a bit gloopy at times. It didn't make me think of Jaipur, whereas I thought the Jaipur 10 this year did. At second place was the Weird Beard Sadako Magic Rock Other Half Cut, and I thought that was a really, really good collaboration, and not necessarily one I was expecting to really enjoy.
We really enjoyed drinking that when we did it as a beer of the month.
That really caught us out, I think, because I wasn't expecting that. But the winner, same as yours, Steve, is the Time and Tide Weird Beard Call Your Friends.
I mean, that was a revelation, wasn't it? That beer. I mean, it was. This is how you do a black IPA.
Yeah, because it had
with a little bit of coffee.
Yeah, it had the hoppiness, it had the bitterness, but it didn't have those overtly roasted notes to it, which is, I think, what kills a black IPA for me.
Yeah.
Because if it has the overtly roasted notes for it, it becomes a stout or a porter.
It's a hoppy stout.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want a black IPA to taste like an IPA. If I was doing it blind, I wouldn't know it was dark.
Yeah. And that one ticked all the boxes. I think I've still got one at home.
Oh, you jammy bastard. I can't remember off the top of my head which episode it was that we did that on, but there'll be a link in the show notes. You can go back and listen to us marvelling over Call Your Friends. So let's move on to canned beer of the year, which was for me was a struggle because I hadn't actually been separating cans
you hadn't really done that, and I'd started to do a bit more. So should I go first on this one?
Well, yeah. Go on, you go first because you had done a bit more work on this.
Yeah. So in third place, and I've fallen out of love a little bit with Cloudwater this year, just because I felt their beers were becoming a bit samey. But however, their Vic Secret Sour IPA I thought was fantastic. I thought it had the right amount of sourness, and still felt like an IPA. It was incredibly drinkable. Had it at one of the beer tastings at work, went down really well. But still, a couple of cans left over for me and Clayton to share. So I was happy with that.
Always happy.
Magic Rock Cryo Baby came in at number 2, which I think we did early in the summer. That one.
Oh, yeah, well on. Yeah.
We tried that one. But number 1 was a very late entrance. It's the Magic Rock Thornbridge collaboration Exaltation.
So
the session IPA.
Include that yet?
Well, it's December.
We've not actually published
Doesn't matter. It's December.
Okay, fair enough. You can have it because it's a bloody great beer.
It's fantastic.
Yes.
It's everything I want in the class of session IPA.
Yeah. So I didn't really log this one, so I had to go back, literally using Untapped on this one now. Out of my 12.
Are you able to search on Can?
Yeah.
Oh, see how
if you download your spreadsheet, you can.
How useful is that?
Yeah. The only beer in this list that actually won a beer of the month was Pirate Life's double IPA.
See that won my beer of the month in March or February time.
March. Yeah, we both had that as our beer of the month.
But because we're doing UK beers,
which is an amazing beer. And then, unsurprisingly, the rest of my canned beers throughout the year fluctuate between Jackhammer and Cannibal. So I had to then make a decision between which one was better.
Okay, so where have we got to?
So at number 2, I went for Brewdog Jackhammer. Because I think Brewdog did something to Jackhammer this year that made it great again. I don't know whether it was that Brewdog did something or whether the market did something to other beers that made Jackhammer great again.
I would go for the latter.
But
and also we had a gap between.
We did.
You might find in your Untapped feed there's a bit of a gap between your Jackhammer check-ins as well.
Yes, there was. There was a massive gap.
Because we had a Jackhammer night with Pete, didn't we?
Yeah. And then again.
And carried on.
Yeah. But the only reason that... Well, not the only reason. Well, the reason that Magic Rock Cannibals took this for me was that it got my got my best beer of the month. And this was using Untapped stats for August, September, and October. And that was because all 3 of those months were from the same batch that was brewed late in August, which was a point at which I thought Cannibal had rarely reached. So that's my canned beer of the year is Cannibal. So we've gone through all of the categories. We've now got to come up with our top 3 beer of the year as we continue our way through this.
So what do you think? I mean, flavour profile, I still think this is holding up well.
I think it's holding up very well. I was worried about doing this at the end because it is ABV, but obviously it had the backup of the
whiskey as well.
Shot. I think it is light on the mouthfeel.
Because this is your favourite out of the range, because they do the beer in 12-year-old barrels, 16-year-old barrels and 18-year-old barrels.
And occasionally they do a few specials around that. I mean, I love the Ola Do series.
Because they've done the 30-year-old as well, haven't they?
Yeah, I absolutely love the series. This one for me is the one that's probably most accessible, most drinkable. It's got a lot of flavour going on in there. The flavours are all there. Like I say, to me, it's like liquid vampire pudding. I love it. I think it's brilliant.
I think it's a really easy drinker. I mean, again, we've dropped down 6% plus to an 8% beer. It's very light in comparison, but I do think it is very drinkable. I mean, obviously, I'm a bit more of a whiskey drinker than you. I don't really see... I'm not getting... Maybe someone else would get it, and I won't. But I'm enjoying drinking them both together, but I don't really see the comparison.
Mm-hmm. I'm not sure I do, but hey, it's the end of the year, so let's
Who cares?
It, yeah. Come on, let's do this.
Right.
Beer of the year.
Right, so who's going first?
Oh, we're going first.
No, so we're going to go third, second, third. So should we go third and third, second and second, first and first?
Yeah, let's do it.
Right, so in third place, and this is a beer I haven't mentioned, but weirdly, because of the way we've done our lists, it did end up as a beer of the month, is the aforementioned Magic Rock Cannibal, which I believe ended up in Keg at the Ale House.
It did.
And we drank quite a lot of it.
We drank lots of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was tasting bang. I think
it's like they know us.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like Terry knows, I know what, they're turning up. I'll have something with a green label.
Yeah.
So yeah, in third place, Magic Rock Cannibal on Keg.
My third place was the Legitimate Industries, which I struggled to say.
It's a real shame. It's a real shame you picked that one.
It is. The Cherry Belgian Quad for me took third place.
Okay, not surprised. In second place for me is the Time and Tide Weird Beard Call Your Friends.
Second place for me is Thornbridge Dry Pour.
Ooh.
Cask.
From
the brewery.
That pause is me swearing under my breath, using words we can't display on air. For me, beer of the year is Thornbridge Dry Pour on Cask from the Sheffield tap.
For me, beer of the year, and again this will come as no surprise to anyone that's listened back to previous shows, was the Weird Beer Time and Tide Call Your Friends, which absolutely blew me out of the water. And
okay.
There has not been a beer that has... There have been beers as good as that, but none of them had the impact that that beer had on me in terms of the first few sips of it.
Oh, you said straight away?
Yeah.
You said it on air and you said it off air as well. I mean, so are 1 and 2 are reversed?
So possibly, therefore, if we were doing a collective Hopinions beer of the year...
It's Dry Pour and Time and Tide Weird
You
Beers.
can't split them.
No.
Yeah. So congratulations to both Time and Tide, Weird Beard and Thornbridge.
Yeah, you've made our beers 1 and 2 of the year.
Absolutely, and obviously we are going to both follow this up with a fully detailed Golden Pints blog.
Yeah, where in writing we can pronounce a lot of these words as well.
Yes, we can, and you'll do it on your blog, which will be in the show notes, and people can find mine obviously on our site. So, as we finish off this beer, we just need to listen. Listen. We just need to hear from our listeners one more time this year.
And there's been quite a lot.
Let us know, write it down. Let us know, write it down. Let us know your thoughts and bitter and lingerness. Write it down.
So first up, some of these go back to a few weeks back. So John Rogers at JM Rogers 2000, giving Camera selection of the best bottled beers. Have they conclusively stated that they are completely out of touch with the current quality beer world? All 3 winners are decent beers, but they can be bettered by anybody with an open mind and craft experience. Yes or no?
No.
Agreed. Next up is Paul at UNRCD. So now onto the 5th bottle of the Fullers and Friends beers, and overall they have been really good. On the Cloudwater one, I agree with us. That's the Beer O'Clock Show. Us. It's a proper collaboration. If it was given to me blind, I wouldn't have guessed it's them. It's good though, and I think that's essentially what.
Yeah, and I saw a few comments about it where people said, "Oh, it wasn't enough Cloudwater," but you've got to remember it's Fuller's as well as Cloudwater.
It's Fuller's Brewery, yes. And then from Miles Lambert at Miles Lambert, one thought struck me listening to last week's show: do people trust cans? I mean, quality-wise, I still find there are more than there should be with quality issues. Surely that dampens the in-the-game image.
Yes, I think there are quality issues, because I'm on record as saying I don't want sludge in my cans because I can't judge it if it's in a can.
I think let's just get that sorted out. That would be my one wish for 2018.
Just make the can clean.
Let's get cans sorted out. Jamie Smith at jsmith360 listened to the podcast earlier at work, came home to find Die Hard on the telly. Cheers.
Nothing to add to that.
No, keeping with that theme, the Owl Lady at the Owl Lady, I'm actually doing this watching Die Hard and drinking beer. How's that for dedication? # never seen Die Hard. Stephen Bell at Stephen Bell 2006. Love the podcast, lads. Nothing better than drinking a few beers and listening to your dulcet tones. Cheers. I love the description of dulcet tones.
Yeah, dulcet tones.
That's what does it for me. Yeah. And then we mentioned this one earlier. One of Mark Johnson's posts specifically referenced that it was on the back of a discussion that we had on the show, and this was the other drinks are available. It's pretty easy to negotiate the Christmas period and other occasions without good beer, and there'll be a link to that in the show notes. And then finally, there are 2 thank yous that we need to make. Firstly, to Joe Hill at Multiplex Rants, who mentioned us in his Golden Pints. We are very, very grateful for any.
Thank you very much, Joe.
Any Golden Pints that we pick up. And then to, again, Paul at UNRCD, had a great year of all things beer related. Thanks to my favourite podcasts at Beer O'Clock Show, at Good Beer Hunting, at MBB Podcast, at Beer Nocon, at The Beer Podcast, and at Sipping Fullcast. So, we're almost at the end of the year, mate.
We are.
We are just finishing off the Oladoo.
I can see why this is your favourite out of 3.
It's really easy to drink.
It's accessible, isn't it?
Yeah. You could easily have a stock of this in your cupboard and just go to it whenever you wanted it. I think there's
whenever you wanted that sort of end of evening.
You couldn't do that with the other 2 beers.
No.
They're occasion beers. They're special occasion beers. let's just go back to the things that we think differentiated the three beers.
Yeah, okay.
So with the Irish beer, or the Irish whiskey, we were talking dark fruits, dark chocolate, and it was warming without any burn. With the bourbon, we said it was very sweet.
Yep.
There was some burnt wood and toast in there, and maybe a little bit of a roasted finish on it that maybe wasn't present with the others. And then from the Scotch, it's a very light feel to it. Maybe a little bit sweet, a little bit raisiny on the finish, and maybe some soft fruit flavours to accompany that.
Actually, they've all been a lot more different than
they're
expected them
distinctly
to
different
be.
from one another, aren't they?
Very different. And yes, I suppose if you had done it ABV, we would have gone the Olidoo 200 Fathoms, then we would have done the Bourbon County 2015. But I actually quite like the way we did it at the end.
I think it's worked.
Yeah, surprisingly. I think the last one has worked because we've got the whiskey with it as well.
Yes.
Because it's the whiskey adds a bit of an edge to the whole flavour profile. Still not, for me, I'm loving the Highland Park because I like Highland Park whiskey anyway. I'm loving the Olidoo. I don't quite see how the two are matching up. I'll be honest about that.
No, I don't. I mean, it would have been, if we were going to, again, do it properly, we probably would have got whiskey samples from the other barrels at the other beers. But, as it happens, this is all we had. That's us for this year.
That's 2016. We are not recording
2017.
again. Is it 2017? Okay.
Unless you've got in your TARDIS and gone back
Oh, it's possible.
Back a year.
In my head.
We're going to take a few weeks off now, as we always do in January.
Yep.
You can expect finally to hear the interview that I did with Thomas Terrell, the head brewer at Stone.
Yep, that's coming out soon.
That will be out in January. And we will be back towards the end of January with our normal sort of shit that you enjoy listening
and
to.
There'll be a few collaborations and there'll be a few specials along the way.
Yeah.
And January may not be completely back for you, so keep your ears open.
Absolutely. And if there's anything that you'd like us to feature on the show, let us know. Use that hashtag Hopinions. Let us know your thoughts on this show. Let us know your thoughts on what you'd like us to feature in the future. I'm clearly struggling with words because of alcohol and whiskey. I think it's probably best we finish right now. I just want to finish by saying thank you to every single person that listens to this, every single person that engages with us when we do the polls on a Sunday night, and every single person that just uses the hashtag and just asks us questions and get involved. Without you guys, we are nothing, and that's not the beer talking. Maybe it's a little bit of the beer talking, but
no. I like exactly what Steve said, but I'll also add an extra thank you to my controller, who runs the show and also does all the hard work as well. I turn up, I drink beer, I chat about it, and Steve does all the work. So, cheers,
cheers,
Merry
Christmas.
Christmas.
To 2018.